There are at least 3 ways to build most EDH decks.
Ooh, strong!
Fun!
And mean.
Let's look at the strong, fun, and mean ways that I would build Kaza, Roil Chaser, and the video starts right now. Special thanks to our Patreon supporters who power our channel. Check out our Patreon for monthly giveaways, exclusive content, and even a starring role in our fan fight series. Link in the description below. Hello and welcome to the day. Thank you for spending your time with us. Welcome back to another episode of Jake and Joel Are Magic. I am Joel. We're going to talk about Kaza, Roil Chaser in EDH, and the strong, fun, and mean ways that I would build her. But first, if you like the video by the end of it, go down there and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Helps us out with just the click of a button. Let's jump over into Kaza, Roil Chaser. Kaza is pretty cool. We've got a human wizard, 1 red, 1 blue, 1 2, flying haster. You tap Kaza, and the next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn cost X less to cast, where X is the number of wizards you control as this ability resolves. So at the very least, Kaza is going to lower the cost of your instants and sorceries by 1, just because she would check herself. You probably want to have a good foundation of wizards in the deck so that you can lower the cost of your spells even further. But the strong, fun, and mean ways that I would build this deck, I would go strong, I would go with a wizard tribal build. For fun, I would go with an X spells tribal build, sort of tribal with X spells, a bunch of X spells that can get reduced in cost. And for the mean way, I would go with huge spells so that we can fill up our board with wizards and cast these enormous, impactful spells for very cheap. Let's look at the strong way with wizard tribal. We're going to go through some of my favorite wizards for a wizard tribal deck. Make sure you go and check out another video on our channel. It is a generic tribal EDH how-to sort of video that goes through a lot of tribal cards that could fit into any deck with the right colors. We go through each color and we break it down, and then we look at some artifacts, sort of colorless permanents too, that could fit into any tribal deck. I'm not going to go through those since they're fairly generic. I'm going to go through specifically wizard tribal cards with this build, but make sure you go check out that video if you want to fill up your deck with some other very impactful tribal cards. Or better to start Wizards Tribal than Snapcaster Mage. 1 blue, 1 other for a 2/1 with flash. Enters the battlefield, target instant or sorcery in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn, where the flashback is equal to its mana cost. Let's get another cast out of some huge spell that we cast, or just like a counter spell. We can bring spells back from our graveyard and cast them again. Snapcaster Mage is awesome. Spell Seeker, 1 blue, 2 other for a 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for an instant or sorcery with CMC 2 or less, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. Go get some impactful, counter spell. Go get some impactful whatever spell you need that is 2 CMC or less. Spell Seeker offers this great tutor effect on a wizard body that can go towards your other wizard tribal synergies. Urtai Wizard Adept, I love this card. It's a very fragile counter spell on a stick. Counts as a wizard and you can pay 4, tap Urtai to counter target spell straight up. Pretty fantastic. Patron Wizard, this is where your cards like Spell Seeker, once they've done their ETB, are going to get more valuable to you. Tap an untapped wizard you control, counter target spell unless its controller pays 1. You can do this as many times as you have wizards. Just be like, counter that spell unless you pay 6. I've got 6 wizards on the battlefield. Bop, 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 bop. We're going to counter your stuff. We're going to be very annoying. We're going to be a wizarding pain in your side. It's going to be fantastic. Baral, Chief of Compliance, is going to make our instant and sorcery spells cost 1 further less to cast. Even better. And whenever a spell or ability we control counters a spell, we get to draw and then discard. It's a fantastic way to filter through your deck, get the cards that you do need, get the cards in your graveyard that you don't need, or you know that you've got Snapcaster Mage in your hand. You can flash that spell back after you discard it. Baral's a great addition as a wizard to this deck. Memnarch, Big Daddy Wizard here. 7 costs for a 4/5. For 2 blue and 1 other, a permanent can become an artifact in addition to its other costs, and for 1 blue and 3 other, you get to gain control of target artifact. So we can make literally any permanent on the battlefield an artifact, and then we get to steal it. Memnarch is a house. Memnarch absolutely would be one that I would run in this deck. Docent, I'm not sure how to pronounce this. Let me know down in the comments below. Docent of Perfection is wonderful. 2 blue, 3 other for a 5/4 flyer. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you get to put a 1/1 human wizard creature token onto the battlefield. So we're going to grow the number of wizards on our field to make Kaza's ability even harder, even better. I mean, make Patron Wizard, any ability that checks for multiple wizards on the battlefield is going to get even better. Then if you control 3 or more wizards, transform Docent of Perfection into Final Iteration, which is a flying 6/5 that gives wizards you control +2/+1 and flying, and still has the ability to create human wizard creature tokens whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell. I am a huge fan of this creature. I absolutely think it belongs in the deck. Here's another way to take advantage of multiple wizards on the battlefield. Blue, blue, 1 for a 2/2 wizard. Pay 2, tap 2 untapped wizards you control to copy target instant or sorcery spell, and you can choose new targets. Okay, cool. You're going to send a removal my way? Fine. Pew! We're going to reflect it back at your stuff. Oh, cool. You're using a destruction spell on the player that's way ahead of everybody else on the board. Why don't I get on this? Pay 2, tap 2 untapped wizards, copy it, destroy something else of theirs. Untitled Tracer, big fan of this card. Galecaster Colossus, here's a big old giant wizard. 2 blue, 5 for a 5/6. Tap an untapped wizard you control to return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. This is going to get so annoying so fast. 1 wizard tapped at instant speed to return a non-land permanent of your opponent's to its owner's hand. That can get so obnoxious. The tempo is there. This is a great control card. In a wizard deck, this is an overperformer, as is Azami Lady of Scrolls. Blue, 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 +2 for a 0/2 wizard. Tap an untapped wizard you control. Draw a card. Keep your hand full, anybody? Keep your hand full of counter spells, full of more wizards, full of giant spells maybe that we can cast with Kaza, reducing their cost. Azami is just bonkers. Sage of Fables, 1 blue, 2 other for a 2/2. Each other wizard you control comes into play with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. That means you're gonna have some attacking wizards. You can also pay 2 to remove a +1/+1 counter from a creature you control and draw a card. So you can turn those attacking wizards into card advantage. Normally a wizard deck isn't going to do much attacking. It's going to do some like spell casting and some copying and some bouncing and, you know, a little bit of blue magic, a little bit of red magic mixed in. But you could go with an attacking build of this, maybe attack early and then move into more of a control role late. That would be a pretty cool way to take this deck. Sage of Fables would help with that. Atlas would help with the attacking early. 1 red, 1 blue, 1 other for a flying haste 2/2. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, wizards you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. So Atlas is going to give us this prowess across every wizard we control. If we're able to make a bunch of wizard tokens and get a wizard line attacking in the air, maybe because we flipped the Docent of Perfection, then we've suddenly got an offensive threat on the board where most people will probably look at our deck and think we're more of like a spell casting threat. Kasmina Enigmatic Mentor is a 4-cost 5 loyalty planeswalker. Spells your opponent's cast that target a creature or planeswalker you control are going to get taxed for 2 mana, and she can -2 to create some of those wizard creature tokens we were talking about needing, and then you get to filter a card, draw, and then discard. Kasmina's got a place in this deck, I think. Creating those wizard tokens, contributing towards Kaza's ability, contributing towards any of our other wizard synergies like Patron Wizard or Galecaster Colossus. I think that this is a fantastic card in the deck, as is Riptide Laboratory. It's not a wizard itself, but you can pay 2 to return target wizard you control to its owner's hand. So instead of them getting like targeted removaled, you can bounce it back to your hand and it saves that wizard so that you can cast it again later. That's the strong way that I would build Kaza. Let's talk about the fun way and build a bunch of X spells. There's a lot of different ways to approach X spells. Tempt with Vengeance is one of them. You're going to get to put X 1/1 red elemental creature tokens with haste onto the battlefield, and then each opponent can also do the same, but if they do, you then get to put more elemental creature tokens onto the battlefield, and we're attacking down. I love, too, that these tokens don't get sacked at the end of turn like you would think they would with an ability like this. Tempt with Vengeance is fantastic, and just to be clear with these X spells, Kaza is going to tap. The next instant or sorcery you cast this turn costs X less, So you're going to be able to pump that, however many wizards that pump that mana into X spells in your deck and add to it, even though it's saying like it reduces a cost, it adds to those X spells casting. Stroke of Genius, target player draws X cards, 3+X. Okay, we'll fill up our hand. It's an instant speed card. Okay, we'll fill up our hand. That's fantastic. At the end of your turn. Finale of Revelation, 2 blue+X, draw X cards, and if it's 10 or more, instead shuffle your graveyard into your library, draw X cards, untap 5 lands, and you have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. Fantastic. Wonderful card. No maximum hand size. Untap some lands so you can cast some of the stuff you draw. It is a sorcery speed draw spell. So untapping those lands and then getting to cast something maybe again that turn. Finale of Revelation is really good. Subterranean Tremors. This is a little weird one, but I found it when I was researching this video. 1 red and X, Subterranean Tremors deals X damage to each creature without flying. If X is 4 or more, destroy all artifacts. If X is 8 or more, put an 8/8 red lizard creature token onto the battlefield. I love how weird this card is. You get to destroy all artifacts. It's going to deal X damage to each creature without flying, and you get an 8/8 red lizard creature token. Okay, I'm in. That's kind of strange. I love the art. This thing bursting up. It's a strange card, but I definitely want it in this deck if we're going to be playing a blue and red X spell deck. Subterranean Tremors is going in there just so I can be like, all right, got a weird one for you, everybody. Epic Experiment, 1 red, 1 blue, and X. Exile the top X cards of your library for each instant and sorcery card with converted mana cost X or less among them. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost, then put all cards exiled this way that weren't cast into your graveyard. So you don't want to hit counter spells with this. You don't want to hit other X spells with this. You want to hit spells that like draw cards, have a solid CMC, draw cards, deal damage, bounce things, stuff like that. Destroy artifacts with red. That's the kind of thing that you want to hit with Epic Experiment. So if you're going to run this card, you want to make sure that you've got a good ratio so that the chance that you're hitting spells that will resolve and will be impactful is high. Otherwise, you're going to hit a bunch of stuff that's going to fizzle and you're going to get frustrated. Finale of Promise, red, red, X. You may cast up to 1 target instant card and or up to 1 target sorcery card from your graveyard, each with converted mana cost X or less without paying their mana cost. If a card cast this way would be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead, and if X is 10 or more, copy each of those spells twice. You may choose new targets for the copies. Again, you want to hit impactful spells that aren't X spells and not counter spells because this is a sorcery, so we want instants and sorceries in the graveyard that have impact, draw, like I said, card draw, artifact destruction, bounce, things like this that are going to actually, you're going to get some value out of them when you Finale of Promise those cards back. Now, the other way to take X spells is to just deal damage. Let's burn everybody down. Rolling Earthquake, 1 red and X. It deals X damage to each creature without horsemanship. Okay. And each player. That's really what you want. Each player. That's what we're looking for. Fine, we'll catch some creatures in the crossfire, but each player is who we want to deal damage to. Earthquake. OG, 1 red X, deals X damage to each creature without flying and each player. Boom, that's what we want. We've also got stuff like Fault Line. There's a lot of redundancy on cards like this, so you can really fill your deck up with stuff like this. Red X deals X damage to each creature without flying and each player. Looks the exact same. That's because it is. You want redundancy. Bonfire of the Damned. This one deals it straight up to a target player in each creature he or she controls, and it's got Miracle, so normally you would have to pay X twice. So if you wanted it to hit for 10 to a player and 10 to each creature he or she controls, you would need to pay 1 red and 20, but Bonfire of the Damned has that Miracle cost, so you can just do it that one time, pay 11 mana, and hit them for 10 and each creature they control for 10. Maybe finish off a player that way with a targeted Bonfire of the Damned. And then if you've got Kaza on the battlefield, you're able to cast Jaya's Immolating Inferno, which is dope because it's that targeted type that we were just talking about with Bonfire of the Damned, but it deals it to each of up to 3 targets. 4 players in an EDH match, 3 opponents. We're going to go to each opponent. Okay, I like this. I like this. Now, you need to note it is a legendary sorcery, and you can only cast that if you control a legendary creature or planeswalker, but you probably only want to cast this anyway when Kaza's on the battlefield so that you can pump that mana into it based on how many wizards you have on the battlefield. That's the fun way that I would build this deck. Let's talk about the mean way, and that is let's cast some huge spells. So what you want to do with this build is use any of the wizards that we saw in the first chunk of the video to fill up your board as quickly as possible so that you combine the X reduction with how many wizards you have on the battlefield with any extra mana that you've got to pay whatever the cost is. So in Enter the Infinite's case, those 4 blue mana, then dump any extra mana into it that you've got, and you've got these huge spells very quickly, and you've got essentially this like Izzet ramp deck going. Enter the Infinite is blue, 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 8, 12 mana. Draw cards equal to the number of cards in your library, then put a card from your hand on top of your library. You have no maximum hand size until your next turn. Essentially, it's get your entire library. This is the kind of card where you want to build like some infinite combo that just wins you the game immediately into your deck, so that you cast Enter the Infinite as quickly as you can with this Kaza Roil Chaser reduction, and then you find your infinite combo, you've got it ready to go, you go off, you win right there, and you have quite literally entered the infinite. Temporal Trespass, blue, 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 8, with a delve, so you can reduce it even further and take an extra turn after this one, then exile Temporal Trespass. Extra turns, yeah, maybe we even revisit that in a second. Apex of Power, red, 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 7, exile the top 7 cards of your library. Until end of turn, you may cast non-land cards exiled this way, and if the spell was cast from your hand, which it will be with Kaza Roil Chaser, because we're going to reduce the cost and cast it as quickly as possible, add 10 mana of any one color, so that contributes towards casting those cards that have been exiled, and you're able to get so much value off of one spell cast. It wouldn't be a mean section without casting Decree of Annihilation. Red, red, 8, remove all artifacts, creatures, lands, graveyards, and hands from the game. You can also cycle this for red, red, 5. When you cycle Decree of Annihilation, destroy all lands. So you want to be able to like float some mana or cast something after Decree of Annihilation. You never want to do this card, cast this card, resolve this card without a plan, because then you're just the person that Decree of Annihilation, and that's just a very mean thing to do. I know we're in the mean section, but let me implore you, if you're going to cast Decree of Annihilation, have something else to do on top that's going to contribute towards the game getting over, getting done. You need to win the game with this card, not prolong the game with this card. That's my PSA for you and your playgroup for casting Decree of Annihilation. Eternal Dominion, this isn't one that you might necessarily want because it puts a clock on your game, but for blue, 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 7, search target opponent's library for an artifact, creature, enchantment, or land, put that card into play under your control, then that player shuffles his or her library. Now it has epic, meaning for the rest of the game you can't play spells. At the beginning of each of your upkeeps, copy that spell. You may choose a new target for the copy. So this puts you in a weird place because suddenly you can only cast one thing per turn, and it has to be from your opponent's libraries. You need to build specifically to be able to cast this and really take advantage of it, but in the right build, I think that this card could be super fun, especially if you can get to it super fast and start getting, you know, their indestructible and huge attacking stuff and their most damaging, you know, whatever you can find in your opponent's decks that's going to get the game over quickly, because you don't want the game to go too long if you cast Eternal Dominion. Time Stretch, blue, blue, 8, target player takes 2 extra turns after this one. My advice with this card is to target yourself. I think that's probably the best use of Time Stretch. Clone Legion, if you go with a big Wizards build where you've got an attacking army and you're using Atalas to grow them with prowess, stuff like that, blue, blue, 7, for each creature target player controls, create a token that's a copy of that creature. Again, I'm suggesting you target yourself with this. Unless maybe you've got a teammate, you're playing two-headed giant EDH, Clone Legion needs to target you so that you create a token of all your wizards. Your stuff gets that much cheaper. You're casting Earthquake for 1,000,000 and everybody's going, is this a tie? Did you just kill everybody at once? Okay, I guess we'll go to the next game. Expropriate, 7, blue, blue. Council's Dilemma, starting with you. Each player votes for either time or for money. For each time vote, you get to take an extra turn, and for each money vote, you choose a permanent owned by the voter and gain control of it. So it's like, give me an extra turn or I get to steal anything on your board I want. Give me an extra turn or I get to, and all the way down. Each opponent Expropriate's very cool. Beacon of Tomorrow's blue 6 sorcery. Target player takes an extra turn after this one. Shuffle Beacon of Tomorrow's into its owner's library. Again, I would suggest you target yourself with this. Not probably the smartest thing. Beacon of Tomorrow's, if you can get to this quick, start taking these extra turns, getting more wizards onto the field. You're using Patron Wizard to counter stuff. You're using Azami Lady to draw extra cards. This is what you want to do with this deck, honestly. This is how I would build this deck. These giant spells, play a bunch of wizards, get to them fast, and cast them with Kaza's ability. And we'll round this out with Obliterate. Obliterate is much like Decree of Annihilation for me, where if you're going to cast this, you need to end the game soon after that. Can't be countered, destroy all artifacts, creatures, and lands that can't be regenerated. You probably want to build some enchantments into your battle plan, into your deck's plan, so that they aren't destroyed by Obliterate. Hopefully they contribute toward the end of the game and winning soon after casting Obliterate. You want to use this to win the game, not prolong the game. That is the mean way that I would build Kaza. Let's close the book on Kaza, Roil Chaser. Appreciate everybody watching. Let me know down below how you would build Kaza. This is a cool commander from Zendikar Rising. I was very excited when this one got previewed so that I could start building it 3 different ways. Let me know down below if you want me to build any certain commander that I haven't covered before 3 ways. I'll get to it when I can, and I'll shout you out. If you want to support us further, besides clicking that like button and that subscribe button, we have a Patreon. The link is down in the description below. Monthly giveaways. We've got all sorts of behind-the-scenes stuff, access to our Discord, and you get your name on the slide you saw at the beginning of this video. Other than that, I'm tapped out. I'll catch you later.